What up guys, Terrence here from Retro DNA. So you decided you want to start modifying arcade 1-up cabinets. Well, I don't blame you because these things are pretty freaking rad. You're talking 3/4 size scale arcade cabinets that you can fit in the home. They only weigh about 60 pounds, so they're super light. You can pick them up, move them wherever you want. They don't take up a ton of space like a standard cabinet, and they feature tons of your favorite retro games such as Galaga and Marvel superheroes. And the best thing is they come at a fantastic price point. So why not give it a shot and modify one of these bad boys to make it everything you ever wanted it to be? Well, you're gonna make some mistakes along the way. That's just a fact, and I wanna help ease some of that pain. So I'm gonna go through some of these cabinets and just share with you a quick list of 5 things that you can do to make your arcade 1-up modding experience that much better. All right, guys, this is one of the mods that I have. Of course, it's the 4-player Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade 1-up cab. What I'm running here essentially is the Raspberry Pi 3B+. I highly recommend, number one, going with a 128 gig image if this is one of your first builds. And the reason I say that is because that's going to give you widespread exposure to what types of options are out there. It's going to give you a large selection of games, and then you can kind of do some exploring to see what works and what doesn't. This is one I highly recommend, and I will put the name of it. I can't quite think of the name of it off the top of my head, but it's based on Phil's doodles. You'll see a lot about this, but just really cool imagery for everything here. You know, it's a great transition page. You can see just really cool images, and it's got that kind of comic theme that's good for it. So one of the things I want to recommend right out of the gate, okay, if you're doing a 4-player cabinet, despite what other people tell you, I do not recommend doing the 8 buttons up front. One of the cabinets that I had, we went with the 8 buttons up front for player 1 and for player 2, but they get in the way, and what would actually happen is there would be a gap right here, and you can kind of, I mean, this is just the natural gap. That's not actually a true gap. That's just, I mean, the slightest gap. But there was a significant gap because it's really difficult to fit the L1, L2 buttons right here. So what I do is I actually configure mine, or I should say they're actually trigger 1 and trigger 2, truth be told, because this is your A, B, your X, Y, and then this is L1 and R1. So I really don't see a need for 8 buttons there. So that would be recommendation number 1. Don't go with the 8 button configuration, stick with the 6. Now when it comes to PlayStation, what I would recommend is installing the USB extender. I don't have it on this particular cab, but a lot of folks with the 2 players, what they'll do is they'll have one coin button, another coin button. For instance, this is one I'm gonna be working on here, an Asteroids cab. We're gonna go with the player 1 coin button, player 2, and then we're gonna do the USB extension right here. And that's gonna be built in, it's gonna have the 2 USBs, so you can just plug in your controller if you wanna play the PlayStation games, and you require, you know, the 8 buttons, but I don't recommend doing it. Number 2, as you can see, a lot of people will do the LED ropes across the top. Some people choose to do them in the back. Now here's the thing. Okay, for me, I like to have one cabinet in my arcade room that has this particular lighting configuration, because to me it can kind of be a centerpiece, so to speak, for the arcade 1-ups. So, you know, if this is your only 4-player cab, I recommend going that direction because all the rest are 2 and they look good stacked next to each other. And this one kind of stands out on its own because, of course, it's got the extended control panel there. But the thing you have to keep in mind is, even though this looks great in the dark, let me get a picture of it here with the light off. Even though this looks great in the dark, and this video, of course, is not going to do it justice, the thing you got to keep in mind is when you turn it off, you have a disruption in your green trim work. So you got the green T-molding all the way around, and then of course now you have white here. Now maybe you keep it illuminated at all times, but it's something you want to consider, because if you were to start the LEDs on the back, say right about here, and just go down, you could illuminate the wall behind you, or you could even install some type of strobe or flashing light back there that would allow the wall to illuminate behind it, and it's a nice, good, clean look without disturbing the symmetry of your line work. Just something to consider, because a lot of people go the LED route. This episode's recommended beer is going to be none other than Big Blue Van. It's a blueberry wheat beer, It's brewed by College Street Brewhouse out of Lake Havasu, Arizona. Check it out. I'm pumped. Let's give it a taste. Good stuff. Check it out.
We sat and drank with the sun on our shoulders and felt like free men.
Number 3, I've seen a lot of people who have debated with the 4-player cabinets exclusively whether or not they put the coin buttons here or they actually place them on the edge of the CP. I recommend putting them here, but you'll want to keep something in mind. This is a flexible piece. It's not reinforced very well. So one thing that you can do is reinforce it with some Gorilla Tape. I'll tell you how to do it. There's a brace back here. Simply take a piece of Gorilla Tape and roll it up, about yay big, and then you're just gonna stuff it back there behind it, and that's gonna reinforce this, so when you press on the button, it doesn't flex at all. I put about 4 pieces back there to really stick it to that back frame, and it's worked wonders. It's made it way better, but I don't recommend having it on the edge here, simply because you can bump it in some of the other models where we've done that. You can bump it, actually, while you're hitting another button, and activate a set of controls that you don't necessarily mean to activate. So number 4, I'll say this, a lot of us think that we're gonna build one cab and it's gonna be the one that rules them all and it's gonna be able to do everything. But unfortunately it doesn't work that way because controls are different for different types of games. So especially when it comes to things like the 4-way joystick versus the 8-way joystick, something you wanna keep in mind. If you're playing a game like Burger Time or Pac-Man, you definitely wanna go with a 4-way. Whereas most games, fighters and stuff, you're going to want to go with the 8. You're going to find yourself, kind of disappointed in the gameplay if you just try and build one cabinet that does everything. Number 5 is kind of along those same lines, and that's this. And a lot of people don't necessarily tell you this up front. If you're going the popular route and using the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus or 3B or what have you, something around that, even a Raspberry Pi anything, we'll just say it like that, and you're going to run a lot of PS1 games, you're going to run a lot of N64 games, you're going to find that there's some serious slowdown, there's some lag. Some of them simply just don't play well or play at all, and it's not going to be everything that you want it to be. So you may want to consider going with a PC build. If you spend your time and you're patient, you can get a good PC, for around the same price as a Raspberry Pi. You're going to have to go with a slightly different method of loading it and installing, a different emulator and that type of thing to get it to run. That's what you want for newer games. It's going to run them way smoother because you have more processing power, more RAM, better CPU, etc. Number 6, which is ultimately just the bonus, is that NFL Blitz. It runs really only on PlayStation 1 if you're looking to do it on a Raspberry Pi. Save yourself the headache of trying to find whether 99, 2000, 2001 is going to run on the N64 platform. Just skip that. If you're looking to play NFL Blitz and you want to do it on a Raspberry Pi, do it with the PS1. It's going to make things way easier. And now it's time for one of my favorite parts of the show, when we review comic books. Every episode I'm going to go over a comic book with you, and I am super excited. A friend of mine told me a few years back that if you're going to start reading DC Comics, now is the perfect time because they are rebirthing themselves. So if you're not reading DC, I highly recommend you jump into the Rebirth series. Now, I still read 2 of these series, The Flash and Titans, both of which, of course, feature The Flash. But I did read Superman, Trinity, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and a lot of other issues, and they're very good reads as well. I just kind of had to pick my favorites and move forward that way. But I highly recommend this. DC writes excellent comics. One great thing about this is not only is the artwork beautiful, but it is a relatively short read. Now, for me, that's a negative, but for most people, I think they'll find that, especially if they're kind of easing their way into comics. If you're into retro life, nerd culture, well, you gotta be a comic reader. Those things pretty much go hand in hand. So my recommendation for you today is DC Rebirth, The Flash. This happens to be issue number 35, but please start with issue number 1, work your way up. By the time you get to this point, you're doing some pretty good reading. Game of the day. As always, guys, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe below. Stay retro.